The city within the city. To walk through the Gothic Quarter of modern Barcelona is to walk through a masterpiece of medieval urban survival. Millions of visitors wander these narrow, winding alleys every year, charmed by the shadows, the soaring stone arches, and the chaotic, organic street plan. But this neighborhood harbors a profound secret. The Gothic Quarter is, in reality, a heavily disguised Roman fortress. If we peel back 9 centuries, to the year 1100 AD, the charm of modern Barcelona vanishes. You are standing in a rising maritime power, a heavily militarized, claustrophobic feudal stronghold ruled by the Counts of Barcelona. It is a city of winding, muddy streets, defined by the constant threat of war with the Islamic kingdoms to the south. But dig exactly 1,000 years deeper, to 100 AD, and the medieval chaos is replaced by absolute imperial order. This exact same ground was Colonia Julia Augusta Faventia Paterna Barcino, a minor, highly structured Roman veteran colony. Today, we are going to stand on one single patch of earth and watch 1,000 years of history unfold. We will compare the rigid, sunlit perfection of Roman Barcino at the height of the empire with the gritty, recovering, heavily fortified reality of medieval Barcelona in 1100 AD. We will witness how the people of the Middle Ages survived by literally hollowing out the ruins of the Roman world, building a new civilization inside the indestructible shell of the old. The anatomy of Barcino urban layout. To understand how a city evolves over a millennium, you must first look at its skeleton. In the year 100 AD, under Emperor Trajan, Barcino is not the most important city in the Roman province of Hispania Tarraconensis. That honor belongs to neighboring Tarragona. Instead, Barcino is a small, prosperous colony founded for retired Roman legionaries. It covers barely 25 acres, perched on a slight elevation known as Mons Tabor. Its layout is a weapon of psychological order. Like all Roman colonies, it is bisected by 2 massive, perfectly straight main streets, the Cardo Maximus running north to south and the Decumanus Maximus running east to west. Where they intersect lies the Forum, the vast, open public square. The Roman streets are wide, flooded with sunlight, and engineered for the smooth flow of carts, troops, and water. By 1100 AD, that mathematical perfection has been entirely consumed. Following the collapse of Roman rule, the great stone drains clogged. The paved streets disappeared under centuries of silt, rubbish, and the ashes of fires. As the population retreated behind the ancient walls for safety, space became the ultimate luxury. The medieval citizens of 1100 AD built their homes directly over the ancient streets, encroaching into the thoroughfares until the wide Roman boulevards were reduced to dark, twisting alleyways. The Grand Roman Forum, once an open plaza of political debate, has been completely built over, subdivided into crowded housing blocks and narrow courtyards. The medieval street plan is an organic, chaotic scar tissue that has grown over a rigid Roman skeleton. Yet, if you look closely in 1100 AD, the main gates of the city and the primary arteries still stubbornly follow the ghosts of the Cardo and Decumanus. From marble to mud architecture and materials, the visual contrast between the 2 eras is stark, driven by a complete collapse in construction technology and a shift in available resources. Roman Barcino was a city built to project the permanence of the empire. The public buildings were constructed using opus cementitium Roman concrete and finely dressed stone quarried from the nearby hill of Montjuic. The homes of the wealthy, the domus featured intricate floor mosaics, frescoed walls, and running water delivered by 2 aqueducts that stretched to the Colserola Mountains. By 1100 AD, the technology of Roman concrete and underfloor heating is completely lost. Medieval Barcelona is a city of scavenging. This architectural reality is defined by spolia, the repurposing of ancient materials. The medieval inhabitants do not quarry fresh stone from Montjuic unless absolutely necessary. Instead, the ruins of Roman Barcino serve as an endless, free quarry. Beautifully carved Roman inscriptions, fragments of statues, and massive foundation stones are pried loose and mortared into rough, functional medieval walls. Domestic housing represents a severe technological regression. While the new nobility and the church are beginning to build formidable early Romanesque stone structures, the average citizen lives in a home of rough stone and timber. There is no aqueduct providing pressurized water. Citizens draw from wells sunk deep into the Roman ruins. There is no glass in the windows, only wooden shutters to block the Mediterranean winter winds. The Patricians and the Counts' politics. Politically, the ground underfoot shifted from being a minor node in a global empire to becoming the aggressive capital of a rising medieval power. In 100 AD, Barcino is governed by a local senate of wealthy patricians, the Ordo Decurianum. They are subservient to the provincial governor in Tarraco, who is subservient to the emperor in Rome. Politics here is bureaucratic, peaceful, and entirely focused on civic administration, tax collection, and maintaining the Pax Romana. In 1100 AD, the illusion of a peaceful global empire is a distant myth. Barcelona is the capital of an independent, sovereign state, the County of Barcelona. It is ruled by Count Ramon Berenguer III, known as the Great. Power is no longer bureaucratic. It is feudal and intensely personal. The Count does not rule through a distant senate. He rules through military might and complex oaths of allegiance with local warlords. He has physically grafted his power onto the Roman past. The Count's palace is built directly into the massive, indestructible Roman defensive wall, utilizing ancient defense towers as his personal royal chambers. Under Ramon Berenguer III, Barcelona is aggressively expanding. Politics in 1100 AD involves launching maritime crusades against the Islamic taifas of the Balearic Islands and negotiating marriage alliances that will eventually unite Barcelona with the Kingdom of Aragon. The quiet Roman retirement colony has transformed into a hungry, militaristic capital. The temple and the cross religion. Religion in these two eras dictated the rhythm of daily life, the calendar, and the physical shape of the city. Roman Barcino was aggressively polytheistic, but heavily focused on the imperial cult. The most magnificent structure in the city was the Temple of Augustus. Religion was a civic duty, highly transactional, and conducted outdoors. Sacrifices of bulls, sheep, and pigs were made to ensure the favor of the gods and the prosperity of the emperor. In 1100 AD, the spiritual landscape is utterly monolithic. The pagan gods are dead, replaced by the absolute, unquestioned authority of the Roman Catholic Church. The physical dominance of religion has shifted. The Temple of Augustus has been bizarrely integrated into the medieval cityscape, its massive columns still standing, but now serving as the interior walls of medieval houses. The new spiritual epicenter is the cathedral. Religion in 1100 AD controls time itself. The ringing of the cathedral bells dictates when the markets open, when people pray, and when the curfew begins. The church is also a massive economic and political entity. The Bishop of Barcelona commands vast estates, collects taxes, the tithe, and yields power that rivals the Count himself. Oysters, Garum, and the Maritime Empire trade and daily life. The way the city sustained itself represents a massive shift from an export-driven agricultural hub to a dynamic, recovering maritime crossroads. In 100 AD, Barcino was famous for two things: wine and garum. The surrounding countryside Ager was dominated by sprawling Roman villas producing massive quantities of cheap wine. Inside the city walls, factories processed garum, a highly pungent, fermented fish sauce that was the ketchup of the Roman world. These goods were packed into clay amphorae and shipped across the Mediterranean. The economy was heavily reliant on slave labor. In 1100 AD, the massive slave-run agricultural estates are gone. The economy of Barcelona has reoriented toward intense maritime trade. The city is positioned on the volatile frontier between the Christian north and the Islamic south Al-Andalus. Despite the constant threat of holy war, trade transcends religion. Barcelona in 1100 AD is a bustling mercantile hub. Ships arrive bearing fine silks, spices, and ceramics from the Islamic world, trading them for Catalan timber, slaves, and raw wool. The economy is heavily monetized again, with the counts minting their own silver coinage. We are witnessing the birth of the Catalan merchant class, the burguesia, who will eventually turn Barcelona into one of the wealthiest naval powers in the Mediterranean. The citizens, the serfs, and the call population. Who walked these streets? The demographics of the city shifted from a relatively small, highly structured Roman colony to a densely packed, socially stratified medieval capital. In 100 AD, Barcino was a small town of roughly 3,500 to 5,000 people. Society was strictly divided by legal status: patricians, wealthy land-owning elites; plebeians, free commoners; and a massive population of enslaved people who performed the grueling agricultural and domestic labor. By 1100 AD, the population has grown significantly, approaching 10,000 to 15,000 people crammed into the exact same physical footprint. Society is no longer divided into patricians and slaves, but into a rigid feudal hierarchy: the nobility, the clergy, the emerging free merchant class, and the serfs who work the lands outside the walls. But medieval Barcelona features a crucial demographic reality that the Romans did not have: a vibrant, legally distinct Jewish population. Within the city walls lies El Call, the Jewish quarter. In 1100 AD, the Jewish community of Barcelona is one of the most important and prosperous in Europe. They are heavily protected by the Count, as they serve as crucial doctors, administrators, translators, and financiers for the state. They live in a self-contained neighborhood with their own synagogues, baths, and bakeries. It is a delicate, segregated coexistence that fuels the city's intellectual and economic resurgence: the indestructible shell defense and walls. Finally, we must look at the physical boundary of the city. The most important difference between Barcelona and dozens of other ruined Roman cities is its walls. The original colony of 100 AD had modest walls, but in the late 3rd and 4th centuries, facing the threat of Germanic invasions, the Romans of Barcino undertook a massive engineering project. They built a colossal, impregnable new defensive perimeter. These new walls were up to 12 feet thick, over 50 feet high, and fortified with 74 massive towers. This late Roman wall is the single reason Barcelona exists today. When the Islamic armies conquered the Iberian Peninsula in the 8th century, and when the Franks pushed them back, Barcelona survived the centuries of relentless warfare because its Roman shell was practically indestructible. In 1100 AD, the medieval citizens do not have the engineering capability to build anything remotely as strong as the Roman wall. So, they simply live inside it. It defines their entire world. The wall is their shield against the Islamic taifas to the south and rival Christian lords to the north. The entire layout, the claustrophobia, and the survival of medieval Barcelona are dictated entirely by the defensive geometry of late antiquity: the weight of the stones. Walk through the Gothic Quarter of Barcelona today, and the year 1100 AD feels like a romanticized fairy tale. The Roman colony of 100 AD feels like an abstract myth, but history here is not buried in a museum. It is structurally load-bearing. The modern city of Barcelona could not exist without the aggressive maritime expansion of the medieval counts. And those medieval counts could never have survived the Dark Ages without the massive, indestructible stone walls left behind by the Roman Empire. Between 100 AD and 1100 AD, the people of the city forgot how to build aqueducts, changed their gods, and fought brutal, existential wars. But they never abandoned the footprint of Barcino. If you know where to look in Barcelona today, you can touch a single wall and place your hand on a Roman foundation, a medieval fortress, and a modern home all at once. The streets remain the same. The shell remains the same. Only the empires change.